Welcome, my wild rides, because last week there was a hugely positive reception to the gameplay videos, so I wanted to let you know kind of what the day-to-day is for when I jam Talishar, and that is mostly to play games and to have fun and to do a little bit of learning alongside. And so what that means for me with Levia, who's a hero I've played literally thousands of games with, is that quite honestly, with every day I sit down, I want to try something a little bit new. Try a core game plan I haven't tested before, try different 6 ratios, try different blue counts, try different weapons even, and that's how we stumble onto things like Ball Breaker. So there's a list that I've been having a lot of fun with recently, and I don't really know what it has in terms of tournament viability, but it is really fun, and it keeps me up late at night, hence the name here, Energy. I don't know how creative that is, but this is a list that is trying to abuse a recursion piece that really should be stronger than it is, and that is Mutated Mass. Because Mutated Mass has a couple of synergies that we haven't really explored even back when the KO Armory deck came out, right? And that was because Savage Sash all of a sudden gave us these hugely discounted turns where anything that cost 6 is going to cost 1 less to play, or anything that has an attack of 6, right? And we have a really cute interaction with Mutated Mass where this can count as a 6 just off the basis of the cards that you pitch anyway, right? 3 different costs, all of a sudden Mutated Mass is a 6. And that actually works really well in tandem with the idea of a Savage Sash list that's trying to push Wild Ride and Pulping turns, whether you're lining this up off of a Blood Rush turn and it's saving you that last little bit of resource, and that last attack just so happens to have Go again. Boom, you've definitely pitched at least 3 cards on that Blood Rush turn. Maybe Mutated Mass is free anyway, or you're lining it up with your Go Agains, Dread Screamers, Shadow Realm Horrors, Wild Rides, Pulpings. You're pushing with all these cards anyway, and then trying to slam a Mutated Mass right at the end for basically free, like literally just a free 6 damage. And actually, it's a very reminiscent idea to what Ball Breaker was trying to do, which was to use Ball Breaker as the chain ender in that core list of let's layer double Go Agains so that when we have all this free Go Again, we can actually use a weapon to abuse that fact and get an extra 1 point of damage out of it. But things have changed a little bit because we now have easier access than ever to recursion pieces with Call to the Grave. So previously, if you were trying to run a list like this, how are you going to get Mutated Mass where you wanted it to be? It's a very awkward card. Playing it out from hand is inherently kind of counter to how you get the highest value out of Mutated Mass, because you want to have pitched more cards. And if this is coming from hand, then that's 1 less card that you could have otherwise pitched or pitched into, right? So it's pretty bad to play out from hand. You almost never get to block with it for its defensive value, like almost ever. I don't think I've ever done that, even in the Rune Blades. And of course, we now don't have Art of War to help banish it either. So this is kind of a package that is wholly new with Call to the Grave, letting an aggressive shell like this splash just this 1 copy of Mutated Mass, but know that it's actually a consistent part of the list. So with this build, I've been having tons of fun just exploring that idea of, can I build the entire deck around just the normal rate Levi is looking for, not even being too concerned about the flip as a game plan, but more so pushing a Sash turn to just the limits of what this card can do outside of even KO, right? So a lot of the shell that you see here is built around that idea, just being as aggressive as possible and going for that Sash line, and that's pretty much it. Then in the sideboard, we're looking at ways to basically play around the weaknesses that this deck would inherently otherwise have. And that is against some of the slower decks in the meta, decks that are really heavy on defense reactions. The core of adding Pulping to the list just becomes a little bit less consistent, because especially with Earth Heroes out there right now, there's just a lot of defense reactions. So we can't really get away with running Pulping all the time. And that's where these matchups come in. You'll see for the grind games, we've swapped it around now to still bring in the Dominate that Pulping would otherwise give us in the Writhing slot, but then adding a draw discard that would otherwise not be in the list, that would be missing from the list rather, into the blue base with Tear Limb from Limb. And Tear Limb for Limb actually has great synergy with Writhing Beast Hulk anyway, because in this kind of matchup that we're targeting, these grindy matchups, you can just cheat endgames because pushing this sucker to 12 is gross. Then we're also swapping Mutated Mass out for Howl, but this list doesn't really use Howl all too central to some kind of game plan. We're not banishing Howl turn by turn necessarily, but we're getting good rate out of it when we can. And part of pushing for good rate nonstop in this grindy style rather than the aggro style is to just run Findle Spring Tunic, because this is the kind of card that actually pushes rates pretty grossly in any deck's favor if you're built around Tunic in any capacity. And we're not necessarily built around Tunic, but we're a deck that always has interesting cost curves to play around hand by hand, and Tunic will always find a way to get really good value. Maybe it's the fact that now off of a Swing Big and a blue, you get to Howl into Swing Big and effectively 2-card 11. Or you get to play some Wild Ride line where now Tunic lets you play a Hungering Slaughter Beast or Mark of the Beast to turn off Blood Debt, 3-card 12 turned off Blood Debt, things look great. You can get extra claw swings off of like a Tear Limb from Limb play, that kind of thing. So it always gets good value. The main thing to note though is we're pretty much sacking the Wizard matchup. This is a Talishar build. I sit down, I want to just have some fun, try to think through lines, yada yada. And what I've really come to the consensus with is to fit in more cards that make more matchups more interesting, which is kind of the whole goal. I'm just completely sacking Kano. And it's Talishar, so if you see a Kano, just dodge the Kano. I don't love to do that because actually Kano is a pretty fine matchup for Levia. It's just so demanding on sideboard space that it was affecting some of the other strategies that I wanted to explore with this type of core. And not everyone's locals has a Kano anyway, so maybe it'll work out for like an armory deck type of pick. The last thing to look at really is into Viserai and Vinset. I was running into a wall in trying to beat Succumb to Temptation. I think a lot of decks are running into that issue. Luckily, with Levia, we can take some pretty strong armor into that matchup, and that's where you just really can't ignore Carrion Husk, because the ability to just say, no, I'm going to block this attack in full, your Succumb will not hit me this turn, I will do what I want, is very potent for this kind of deck. And we're also taking Arcane Lantern as our AB piece instead of a AB1 piece somewhere else in the list. And this is because we don't want to sack our armor slots for that similar reason of playing into Succumb. We want Fleshbag. Fleshbag is huge into Vinset and Viserai specifically. And by taking stronger armor, we can probably flip almost anytime we want to, barring some strange scenarios with like double Revels that you're not planning around or something like that, which, it's Runeblade. If they draw their M's, they're probably going to beat you. We're not really trying to just all out race and assume that Blood Rushes will win us the game, because they can easily counter that strategy by just drawing and playing Succumb to Temptations. So we're going to grind them out a little bit more. We're going to get really strong value out of stuff like Guardian, because even the first time you see this should block effectively 7. You pitch a blue, Rune Chant, then it blocks 6 as well. You flip into Blasphemfet, now this card blocks 1 card 7 for that same thing. So really those matchups you want to approach all about the flip and getting good value that way, instead of just, let's try to blow you out with Blood Rush, which is kind of what every other matchup tends to look like. Succumb is just a hell of a card. So I wanted to let you all know something fun that I've been playing around with, and hopefully get a couple good games recorded here for us. So let's check it out. All right, we've got a great game here in Zen, a deck that's really not dead, people. Very much not dead. And we're going to get to show off the aggro game plan with Sash and Mutated Mass. So let's hope that works out for us, because honestly, Zen, really good deck. Like, really good deck. The tales of him being dead are kind of overshadowed by the fact that he plays really well as a meta counter pick right now. So even though he's just not the de facto best deck, he's very much built to be well positioned right now. I'm not entirely sure what happens when Dash.io comes out, but you can't forget that this dude gets to create Zen state tokens versus any of these go wide decks. And so that's probably pretty darn relevant. Because any deck that can take a defensive stance into Dash.io definitely is like putting the onus on the -IO to win. And I don't think it costs Zen much to still play aggressive when he needs to, when the dash like takes a setup turn. So I'd honestly be pretty scared of this hero still. Pretty scared of this hero still. Speaking of being scared of this hero, they are attacking into us, which we do appreciate actually quite a bit. What we don't appreciate is that two of our cards are effectively non-blocks. So that part's going to be a bit rough here because it is quite a bit of damage that we are leaking on turn 0. But the good news is, if it's true damage anyway, then we might as well go ahead and use Apex. This is actually something that comes up quite a bit. When you use Apex going second, if it was going to be true damage regardless, then there's really not much lost in the fact that you used armor on turn 0. And you give yourself a might token, which is relevant damage going second, as well as now priming yourself to have graveyard fill with just one more block, which is also relevant. So with that, we have drawn into basically a forced Beast Within line on Call to the Grave, just because we're going to end up blood rushing, pitching a blood rush. There's no world unless you absolutely have to Hail Mary a like awful matchup or something. Like I do it into Chain, for example, back in the day, where sometimes you just have to YOLO a blood rush, hoping that you don't discard the other blood rush, just because that game is definitely going to be over so fast that you don't see the blood rush again. And so if you don't play a 3 blood rush game, you just don't win. That was Chain for you. But now I actually think we'll be able to overcome the Zen in theory, even if it is only a 2 blood rush game. It is possible with shuffle effects from Call to the Grave that we can change the draw order here. But we already used one, and then we're also not incentivized to burn one for Mutated Mass at any point since we already did find that card, which was an upside, honestly. But the Call to the Grave Beast Within lines are always good. So if that comes up, sweet. But more than anything, we are just happy that we went second and have an incredibly playable hand. And don't forget, it's because our opponent attacked us turn 0. Like, you get massive value. You just get insane value from opponents attacking into you turn 0. Like, our hand could have played, for sure, if they didn't attack us. Like, we had the pulping, right? So we knew that we could do something with that hand. We had the pulping, we had the Mutated Mass, so like that as a pitch outlet, probably then into Claw, and Arsenal one of our go-agains was definitely live. But this is much better. This is so much better. Look at that. A really solid 19 damage turn going second. Our graveyard looks incredibly healthy. Incredibly healthy. And we drew into more go again. That is fantastic. So right now, it is a lower rate play to go Dread into Boneyard, but it's the safest line. There are options of, YOLOing a Wild Ride. I don't think I'd ever do that, truth be told. So we are just going to go for basically a heavy banish on the graveyard here, and we do end up hitting a Mutated Mass. That's quite nice. As we start to set up how this Mutated Mass turn plus Sash is going to look, having a Wild Ride in Arsenal is definitely part of that. Definitely kind of getting us towards that goal pretty early here. Because it doesn't have to be a Blood Rush turn. That's not entirely what we're looking for when we are trying to craft this Sash Mutated Mass. It just needs to be a turn where we've wanted to crack Sash, so we've been incentivized because we have like some multiple go-wide opportunities, and then also end up pitching at least 3 cards. So that generally means it was a draw discard somewhere, so that we have the pitch outlets in Mandible Claw. But it's really like, it's a 5-card play. Like, let's not kid ourselves. It does take a lot to push for that line. You can force it a little bit with Hooves of the Shadow Beast, for sure. And as we see our opportunities with this hand, it actually might be one we want to take. Because in theory, we open with Wild Ride, and that is likely how we're always going to take this turn anyway. There's not really hit effects coming from Zen, but if there is a CNC at the end of the chain or something, we can always block Beast Within and Graveling Growl. But generally, I'm actually going to prime our armor to perhaps play out this turn with the Mutated Mass. I think if we do it here, it would be pretty incredible. But they're also at 22, right? They're also at 22. It's a... Oh, something's going on with Talishar here. I hope it's not breaking and that they can actually play out what they want to. I'm not entirely sure here. All right, chase the tail. See, once again, these are not real hit effects. There's not even an anthem effect on the tigers this turn, so the tiger swipe is also not a real hit effect. Talishar is having some issues, folks. Look at this. Having some issues. Back end warning, undefined K array key -1. Okay, so it's all good. It's all good. I'm on this side of the screen anyway, so now my face plus all these red bars of code are blocking the gameplay. Great. All right, and I would assume this is just for... Oh, that's for 5, actually. Yeah, okay. Holy moly. Holy moly, Talishar. Another chase the tail. Okay, so now there is a relevant hit effect on the tiger swipe, basically, because it's threatening the chase the tail effect. So, you know, this is going to come in for, what, 5 because of the ancestral. So actually, we're incentivized now to change how we're blocking and just play the Endless Maw turn. Because the only other way to block 5 would be to give a card somewhere. So, since we're going to do that, let's go ahead and block 1 here. Then he's going to tiger swipe. And we're going to block with the Beast Within and just go for the Endless Maw line instead. Oh, look at that. I kind of got cheesed. I forgot about this. I forgot about this mostly because the entire side of the screen was red, but Pouncing Paws will on demand get them the Crouching Tiger. Okay, so a little bit of lost value then, because I do think we could have launched into that turn, but we have enough life that we should be able to make that choice one more time here. We definitely have enough life that we can make that choice later. So no real reason to give armor here, just because the Sit effect doesn't do anything anymore. They get banished. He's already triggered Shuko, yada yada. Save us the time, don't even play him out. What's the point? There we go. Thank you. Alright, so after all that, we're just going to 2-card 9. Look, see, when I play cards, there isn't all that red text. Look at that. I'm Talishar's favorite. Confirmed. But truth be told, there was maybe a little bit too much chance in going for the Savage Sash type of line with that hand. It came down a lot to, could we end up pitching into Wild Ride, Claw, and Endless Maw? Like, those 3 things would get us to where we want to be with Mutated Mass. But we should be able to make that choice just one more time here. So, yes, okay, so this is good. This is kind of what we look for, because this hand guarantees that we get to turn off Blood Debt first. So let's just go ahead and respect the Bittering Thorns just a little bit. We are blocking with armor anyway this turn, and it's not going to be from hand, right? It's just going to be armor. So we don't really think we need to block with hooves, so if we can keep these up, we'll keep them up. It should just be raw damage from here on out. Okay. Back end warning. Really going hard. Alright. Really not a bad turn. We have plenty of life to work with for next turn. They've got, in theory, like a random arsenal, because we did flesh bag like pretty much as early as possible in the turn. They already got to pitch a card, so not entirely random. So, if we Savage Sash into the Dread Screamer, of course we're adding our 3rd miss to the graveyard, but because there's uncertainty in how the Wild Ride is going to affect our resources for the turn, we kind of do have to do it. And there we go. We hit our go again. Thank goodness. We hit our go again. But this is looking pretty good to get us where we want to be. Right. One of the reasons we want to do it early is to, of course, not end up pitching more 6s than we have to, because we're going to go into the wild ride here with 2 6s in hand. Of course, there's a failure state again off the top of the deck. We just hope that doesn't happen, because that would stuff our turn pretty awful. But no, that is looking good. That is looking good. We can get to 3 cards kind of awkwardly, because the Sash wouldn't even come into play since we did draw blue. 6, I'm not gonna like really complain about it. It is pretty nice, I guess, that we just get to go this route instead. The option here becomes we can crack hooves to go hungering into, or rather we'd go Mutated Mass, close the chain into hungering. Do we really need to do that? It's significantly more damage at the end of the day, honestly, to go for that line. It is significantly more damage, because otherwise we'd just be going 3 into 4. So 7 versus 10. They're at 3. The problem with that is we are then giving up hooves without having blocked with it. Oh wait, no, what am I kidding? No, because we do get, the Mutated Mass does get the +2 at the end of this, because we're pitching the Hungering Slaughter Beast. Yeah, duh. I'm tripping myself up. We are pitching the Hungering into playing it, so it does come in for 6 at the end here. So it's actually the same. It's 1 less, to be fair. It's 1 less, but we don't have to sack hooves, and we get the block value for this next turn. So, actually totally fine. Totally fine, people. Chill. We're just not getting the Mutated Mass discounted from Sash, but that's okay. Getting it discounted is just, it's a little bit cute. It doesn't always happen. It's a little cute when it does. So there we go. We got our 5-wide turn off the back of Savage Sash here. Our opponent is keeping 4 cards. They went to 1. We have Reckless Swings in the deck. Don't forget. Don't forget. We also can kill with Dominated Pulpings. Don't forget. So, with this hand, we don't really have a good way to really play the game. We kind of need this to end the game. So generally, we want to just try to pulping to win. To do that, we want to keep at least 1 6 in hand to make it a little bit more likely. But if we have to end up blocking with 2 cards, we'll do it. Because once again, it kind of comes down to this or we lose. And now a Chase the Tail comes through. Okay, so this will be our first block. We'll go ahead and get the Apex in here as well, just in case. And then an Aspect, sure. The Crouching, okay, that demands another card. If all they can do is weapon after this, we do survive. But if they can do something more, we die. Okay, alright, come on, Pulping. This is what you were made for. It's why you're in the deck. Let's see it. Alright, and that's it. Well, they could also just draw Chi. They could also just draw Chi. Right? And then we win. Because they can't block. 2 Chi. Show me 2 Chi. It's good enough. Nope. It can't be a drop in the ocean. They already played it. Don't tell me. Okay, well, they could have just blocked. And we would die. So I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. But if you look at your average value per turn, check this out. That's pretty good. Value this turn, 27, 10, 15, 28, 14. And actually, that was only from 1 Blood Rush and then 1 Sash push, okay? All right, so this will be against Ira, and Ira can honestly play the game in plenty of different ways. Not entirely sure if they go for like that grind value or if they go full on aggro. What I've noticed though is you kind of do have to hedge at least Scowling Fleshbag, because more armor to help deny the Mask Momentum triggers is just beneficial flat out. But they get a lot of value. They're a value deck. That's all they are. So we're going to opt for the grindy Tunic core game plan with a little bit of a concession to the fact that armor does have guaranteed value in their Mask Momentum, as well as Fleshbag specifically can stop their pretty face-up small hand plays where they try to go for like weapon into finisher. So we'll take this and hope it works out. Hope it works out. The other advantage that we just had is we won the die roll and we chose to go second. So if they're the aggressive Ira, then in theory, us opting to go second has already benefited us a little bit in that regard. So equipment pieces definitely lean slightly on the aggro side, just because Breeze Rider Boots is a choice that they can take. All right, we are probably going to take some fat damage turn 0. Oh yeah. All right, so they're the more aggressive list, guaranteed. And we are just eating damage going second. But you hope that you can always turn this back around, because we do take, we take damage, but we get to play the game right back into them. And we hope that that is a decent trade-off. But let me tell you, 10 damage is a lot. We took a lot right there, but we did just okay. But we hit a beast within on the wild ride. We'll take that as well. Not going to argue about that. This effectively lets us 3-card 12. We'll just play the Agile Windup and we can Arsenal the Wild Ride, and that should feel pretty good. But we're definitely behind. We're behind. We ate a lot of damage going second, and we chose Tunic when they are the aggressive Ira. So definitely losing points there, because now it's always going to feel a little bit slow for us to pull out the Howl with the Call to the Grave, which is what we've opted in our deck list here, because of this grindy feel that we were trying to approach the matchup with. So we probably just have to give up on Call to the Graves pulling recursion pieces this game. And if that's what you end up doing with the normal Sash Mutated Mass core, it feels okay, because when you give up on pulling recursion, at least the Mutated Mass just is a blue. You'll never really do anything else with it, but it's at least a blue, which will play through the rest of your deck really well, because Levia, very blue-centric. This version is going to suffer a little bit because the Howl from Beyond, which, look at that, we just drew, is, of course, a red. So if it was a blue here, imagine how pretty that would look. Literally, if this was the Mutated Mass, we could go Dread Screamer into Wild Ride into Claw, most likely, and then Arsenal a card. So looking gross. Looking a little gross. But that's okay. Most likely, we will just end up 2-card 6ing here. And if we ever do banish this Howl, then maybe it'll work out for making us play this kind of awkward early game. It might work out. No lost value there, at least, blocking 2. And a flying kick. Ooh boy. Okay, so this isn't threatening mask or anything. The armor, once again, will definitely come up with Mask Momentum, so we will just save it for that. I really wish we could block with another card here. But that's okay. A 2-card 6, effectively the same as like a 2-card or a 1-card 3, right? Because if we could block with an extra card, then the difference would have just been the value is defensive rather than offensive. But I would have rathered block more because we have opted for Tunic, so we actually want the game to be a little bit longer. If we only get 1 use out of this Tunic, that's awful. That would be just the worst. So opting for being able to block leans us into Tunic mattering more. And we'll hope it does. And actually, this is about as stars aligned as you could hope for, in all honesty. A tunic coming up with Blood Rush, with a Wild Ride and Arsenal, with no blood debt to really worry about yet. I mean, all that actually does look pretty good. So I really don't want to worry about mask triggers this turn or anything dumb. So we will go ahead and commit the flesh bag. Which of course, they keep an ancestral over. Nice. That's what we didn't want to see. So we really don't want to give a card from hand because the Wild Ride will be card hungry. Okay, well, this is actually interesting because now we can interrupt Mask in theory. Mask is actually really low value this turn because we did Flesh Bag, so the reason to care about it is if they have a card with Go again, then they could immediately convert that card. So it's like, it's a little back and forth on whether or not you really want to make that call, but we'll just make that call. Okay, because sure enough, Rabble had Go again. So if Mask triggered, they could convert that card. We don't want them to convert that card. So from their point of view, they definitely should have attacked with Rabble instead of Kodachi here. That's okay. We'll just pretend that the card they drew, they couldn't play anyway. Although we know what they would have drawn. They would have drawn Ancestral. Okay, so Ancestral actually was unplayable anyway, so not a huge deal that they attacked there. What it would have changed, though, is that we don't block with hooves, basically. However, we might end up using hooves, so maybe it's okay. Alright, nice. We kept the resource card. We like this. We do want to keep the resource cards. Kind of boring, because our turn can just be Claw, Claw, Writhing Beast Hulk. Easy. What I'm more interested in is trying to get Wild Ride value. It hits that beast with an even cooler. There's just so much risk associated with playing it that way, right? Like if we play the Wild Ride now, whew, and just miss right off the bat, that's like instantly game losing. Whereas if we at least lead with Claw first and then Wild Ride pitch the Mark the Beast, same deal. Like missing is still really game losing. I kind of wanted to draw it in a way where we didn't just have a Claw Claw line, and then we actually needed to lean into Wild Ride, but I guess we shouldn't complain. Like we literally have Claw Claw Writhing. That is totally acceptable. Totally acceptable, and we just get to Arsenal the Wild Ride. Keep it in Arsenal rather for next turn when we still have Tunic up. So honestly, I'm going to stop complaining because that sounds fine with me. I was just mentally prepared to want to play the Wild Ride out, to just go Claw, Wild Ride, attack. Something along those lines. But this is honestly, it's so good as well, just to make sure that we have an extender in Arsenal for next turn. So yeah. Let's just totally live with how this turn played out for us. Let's just live with it. Also upside of potentially banishing the Howl, but we did not. That's okay. We didn't hit any blood debt. Also kind of nice. In terms of damage ceilings, it's hard to say with the aggressive Ira deck what their damage ceiling is, but they have like pretty much all the 0 for 4s or the 1 for 4s possible. I guess this is like a 1 for 5 in actuality. But we are looking to only block with Apex and maybe not even with a card from hand. If we block with a card from hand, it's going to be because we can like deterministically block a mask turn or something. Mask trigger. Oh, we drew another Blood Rush. Okay. And we drew a Blood Rush with Tunic. This is actually another line that's really interesting, is this saves us from leading with a yellow pitch, which when we have double yellow, actually is kind of cool because we're guaranteed to keep a yellow going into the Blood Rush draw. Okay, that's good for us. They revealed a blue with Ravenous Rabble. And it also shows us what they would draw if we let Mask through, which is Stab Wound. So we could, in theory, just always Apex on the Stab Wound, and that would block for 4 effectively. So, kind of cool. Kind of cool that we know that. Okay, well, now that's not the case because... Oh, actually, we knew they had Ancestral anyway. Okay, alright, so it's all falling apart. We knew this because it was revealed last turn. So now there's a new card on top. But they're giving us the window again to turn off the draw. I don't know if we really care, honestly, about the draw right now. No, I think we're going to greed a little bit because if this is like the worst case for us and it's some kind of giant chain ender, then we'll just block our hand differently to just play out the Endless Maw maybe. Like if it's demanding lethal, you know, then we will block it. Obviously, if it's not demanding lethal, I think we just keep this and send. Yeah, so let's just live with these dagger hits. And then is that it? Then it's a take the tempo. Okay. Well, sure. So now we can Apex. This is still fine for our Bloodrush turn because we're going to lead with Tunic. We also are blocking their Mask and we're triggering Might on a turn where we are obviously going aggressive. So this is lucky for us. It's not a combo card. They can't even breaking skills here. Some of the 1-for-5s are combos, but not take the tempo. Okay. All right, Tunic, do your thing. This is actually a big showcase for how Tunic works with Bloodrush as well. Rhinar players know this feeling, but it's quite nice. Like, we didn't have to commit a yellow pitch. Oh, God, look at how good that was. Look at how good that was. We didn't have to commit a yellow pitch, and now we can go Claw Claw Hungering. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good. We also have the option to just trigger Hooves and go Hungering Wild Ride. Kind of interested to see damage-wise. It's just 3 more damage. So let's see how they block on the Mandible here, because if they block with like a Flick Flack, then I don't think we do that. But if they don't block at all, if they just blocked with a CNC so far, CNC Flying Kick. Okay. Yeah, so I think now we have Deterministic Lethal if we just do this. Yeah. Deterministic Lethal. We'll go Hungering into Wild Ride and say GG. Whew, I was scared. I was actually really scared about how Tunic was going to look this game, but it looked pretty good. It looked pretty good. And boom, Wild Ride. So, should be it. I guess not. It's not guaranteed to be game over in theory, because it could be a block 4. All right, opponent just had some confusion about how I had go again, but didn't have go again. I had an action point with Hooves, baby. And sure enough, look at that. Last card didn't even block. All right, I'd love to play just one more game that better shows off the grindy game plan. So let's do this one against a Rhinar. Rhinar, you know, you could take it as a Sash matchup. I'm kind of tempted, but I have seen a lot of Romping Club Counter Blessing Rhinars, and you don't really need to grind game those because the Counter Blessings decks just don't block, and if you take the aggro package, you absolutely slaughter them. But Rhinar in general, I think tends to be more aggro. Oh, it's going to be a toss-up. We called it wrong on the Ira, so let's call it right this time. I feel it. All right, nice. We did call it right this time because this is the Mandible Claw aggressive Rhinar version. Now, I will say, when you face off against a brute like this, our advantage is that we do dumb stuff with Sash. We do real dumb stuff. You know, we're talking the Mutated Mass type of lines, right? We're talking the extra go again enabled off the back of that for cheap, like the Dread Screamers, the Shadow Realm Horrors. So more than what KO is doing, more than what Rhinar is doing, we do abuse this card very uniquely. So they've also given us a chance to basically get free graveyard fill here. I think we're just going to go ahead and take all of it. Because worst case from them is they like agile wind up and then claw. So blocking this way is like greedy in theory because we could take 3 damage here. But it's free graveyard fill. It's cycling us towards our better cards. And we guaranteed had a pulping to follow up with anyway. So we're just going to take that opportunity. We appreciate that, opponent. We appreciate that. And then we draw this monstrosity. Okay, well, now I'm regretting not keeping at least the blue, but we drew this hand on a turn where we are basically least punished for it. So that I do appreciate. I definitely do appreciate that. Now, I would also like to mill a card that doesn't matter and keep the pulping in arsenal. That would also be nice, deck. You just did something really mean to me. Now, thank you. You did something nice for me. So the difference being if we'd kept the Dread Screamer for a blue at minimum, then we could have gone pulping into a Mandible Claw, basically. So we are giving up on 3 damage to just get an extra card in graveyard, but of course that's like a draw sequence thing. We couldn't really say that's how it was going to play out. We will happily let them get that barraging value because we have a Blood Rush turn. Our question becomes, do we want to go ahead and block with Sash just because we might use it? We have a pulping, so there's a possibility that we can go pretty crazy already. I kind of like that. Against Brute, you get to make these kinds of blocks early because they don't really matter. Against Splatter Skull, you kind of do want to keep armor up. Like that is fair. That is true. Splatter Skull does incentivize you keeping armor so that you don't just lose a card to Intim. But remember, our game plan is to just kill him. Just kill him. So we don't worry about their giant Splatter Skull hands to really punish us. So actually, it looks like with the way they IP'd themselves there, if we had clawed, they would have gotten card efficiency out of their turn. So who cares, actually, in the end? Who cares? Now we are drawing some wild blues. Just too many blues. We went from too many reds to too many blues. So what we're going to do is try to fish something new out of Arsenal here, or for our Arsenal rather, and just go ahead with the pulping now. That actually would have been a better Arsenal than most of this. So that's kind of sad. It's a little bit sad. That's okay. We might get decent value. You know, Soul Harvest is just a 3-card 12, as long as we've got the Blood Debt to banish it. So that could be fine. We're also, in theory, baiting a Scowling Fleshbag here. Oh, but it looks like they didn't opt for the Scowling Fleshbag. Kind of upsetting, because we are threatening it. It's just not real. We're threatening it, though. Alright. Yeah, okay, so we actually do get our Soul Harvest play, because we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We will have the full 6 by blocking with Endless Maw. So we'll take that. We'll take that. It's also clearing out a miss, because Dread Screamer Blue is a miss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a good rate. Rhinar generally doesn't get these rates, so it might look a little gross. But we played out a relatively clunky arsenal for full value. I don't think we can hate that. What we've seen out of the Rhinar deck is a tendency towards a little bit more defense than I would have thought. No Fears and Unmovable probably don't slot into the standard Rhinar shell. Send Packing, Alpha Rampage, Beast Within. Okay. So their turn doesn't look that nice, honestly. I would assume they just Send Packing Overpitch. Okay, or not. This looks nice, though. We have a pretty free line to just block the Send Packing. Go ahead and throw the Endless Maw and arsenal the Mark the Beast. Oh, there's a new Look at this. Did this happen like while we were playing? I don't remember this icon. I think this is like a live update, people. How cute. Blood Debt is now called Blood Debts. Okay. The plural of debts. I owe several debts. Oh, I mean, that is correct, I guess. Yes, that's correct. They block with a splatter skull. Heck yeah. And we know their arsenal is an alpha rampage, so not super threatening. Okay, now they go ahead and throw a C and C. This is where not having scab skins hurts a little bit, doesn't it? It hurts just a little bit. Not all that much though, because I think we can just pivot to having a pretty weak turn of just throwing the Mark of the Beast and arsenaling the Shadow Realm. Should feel pretty good. When you first see a Shadow Realm, you of course like want to just press go, because the graveyard actually looked pretty good. It didn't have the Blue Dread yet in it, but I didn't feel like getting too cute around just denying CNC value when we had a breakpoint block that actually wants to block with, right? Okay, so it is the Counter Blessings Rhinar. Okay. It's a very strange shell around the Counter Blessings. Like, I would not assume they take the Mandible Claws with that. And the first one that they see is just a blue. So pretty poor card efficiency out of them so far. We have a pretty gnarly turn lined up in theory, as long as the Shadow Realm hits. Okay, well now it's guaranteed to hit. Look at those banishes, people. Nice. Yeah, we'd rather it... So it's guaranteed to hit a 2-cost just from playing it now. So we just do that because we want higher odds of hitting the swing big, and we hit the swing big. Okay, easy. Because we could have closed the chain, but it doesn't actually impact us. And then, okay, the opponent just took it and died. Well, okay. We're going to get that back. 15 value average over a 6-turn game. All right, well, you know what? Like I said, this is the deck I play for fun on Talishar. It gives me that energy. I think it is a blast to play. You just have to dodge Kano, which is also just a part of the Talishar experience. So hopefully you all enjoy this. I don't know if it's like really a ProQuest deck. It's kind of, yeah, a little too untested for that maybe, but I have logged, almost 60 games so far. We're sitting at a 76% win rate. The tough matchups are generally, yeah, Aurora. I mean, man, that one's a tough one no matter the list, in all honesty. And then Viscerai, I will say, I think some of these losses are from when I hadn't added the Arcane Lantern back into the list, because this was like a bit of a concession of just deciding, you know what, I want these back in the list, and I will have a better matchup into them rather than having Kano stuff in the sideboard. So that's kind of where that concession came from. But still, this is a pretty good Talishar deck, and I hope you all have the best of luck with it as you take it and enjoy it as well. So with that, I will see you in the next one.